a letter that was addressed to the president, and it was an open letter shared with other media houses. Sister Sose.
Thanks ever so much, Suleiman. Good afternoon to all our listeners, wherever you're listening from. Good afternoon from the UK. I would now read an open letter that was sent to the President of the Republic of the Gambia with regards to the disenfranchisement of the diaspora, of the Gambian diaspora. And I read, I'm quoting directly from the letter. Your Excellency, President Adama Barrow, President of the Republic of the Gambia, number 1 Anne-Marie Javoué Avenue, the State House, Banjul, the Gambia, 24th May 2021. Your Excellency, President Adama Barrow, disenfranchisement of 200,000 diaspora Gambians cannot be allowed to continue under your watch. The undersigned Gambian diaspora organizations and individual citizens resident in foreign countries are deeply concerned about the slow pace of preparedness of the Independent Electoral Commission to actualize diaspora voting for the presidential election scheduled for December 2021. We are equally worried that barely 7 months to the said presidential election, the apparent lack of commitment on the part of other relevant stakeholders, including the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, responsible for diaspora affairs, and the Ministry of Justice, the line ministry overseeing the IEC, have evidently failed to show reasonable haste to coordinate their efforts in order to expedite the necessary process that will ensure that the diaspora's right to vote in compliance with both existing laws and government policy materializes in good time for the scheduled elections. Your Excellency, we respectfully draw your attention to the policy statement contained in your government's flagship policy document, the National Development Plan, NDP, 2018 to 2021, specifically under the heading of Diaspora in Development, as one of the 7 critical enablers of the NDP, in which your government gave a cast iron guarantee to actualize the enfranchisement of Gambian diaspora in accordance with Section 39(1)
Recording in progress.
and 26 of the 1997 Constitution. We also call your attention to the recent Supreme Court ruling in the case of Bakari Bunjadabo and others versus the Attorney General of the 27th January 2021, in which the country's apex court reaffirmed the right of Gambians living abroad to be registered and to vote in all elections and referenda, amongst other rights. Your Excellency, continuing to tolerate the disenfranchisement of Gambian diaspora is proven to be difficult because it is the same as disenfranchising the whole of Karawan Local Area Council, which has a similar population size to the Gambian diaspora. It will also amount to a deliberate and direct discrimination of around 9% of the Gambian population in clear violation of the constitutional provision, Section 17 and 33 of the 1997 Constitution, based merely on where citizens resides. The supreme laws of Gambia prohibit such act. The Gambian people abhor it, and so should you, Your Excellency. As the 2021 presidential elections draws closer, the Gambian diaspora and their supporters at the home front continue to demand for the Gambian diaspora's legal right to be registered and to vote. And we call on Your Excellency to leave no stone unturned to ensure that the promise you made to the 8th region of the Gambia, the diaspora, in your NDP is respected and fulfilled. The implementation of this legitimate demand will be in keeping with the obligations of your government to respect the Constitution of the Gambia, to project a culture of sound democratic practice, to promote the principle of popular and inclusive participation, and to demonstrate respect for the rule of law. Your Excellency, the implications of doing anything less by continuing the illegal policy of deliberate inaction on the part of your government and the continuing disenfranchisement of bona fide Gambian citizens who just happen to live abroad will prolong the more than 2-decade-long policy of marginalization by the ousted dictator that deprived the Gambian diaspora of their constitutional entitlement to participate in national affairs since the advent of the Second Republic. In fact, anything short of registering the Gambian diaspora in line with the constitutional stipulations to actualize the Gambian diaspora's right to vote in the December elections will call into question the legitimacy and credibility of the presidential election and could trigger further unintended consequences. It will also, no doubt, Your Excellency, negatively impact on your legacy. So, as we endeavor to find an expeditious path to the realization of our full legal entitlement to participate in national decision-making at the highest level, along with our brothers and sisters and our larger Gambian family, please be assured, Your Excellency, of our highest consideration and respect. Yours sincerely, signed for and on behalf of the undermentioned signatories, Binde Jabate, Right to Know, Democratic Union of Gambian Activists, Duga, Gambia House. This letter is CC'd to the Independent Electoral Commission, the Ministry of Justice, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the Ministry of Finance and Economic Affairs, the Joint Committees of the Foreign Affairs Select Committee and the Local Government Select Committee of the National Assembly of the Gambia, African Commission on Human and People's Rights, the British High Commissioner to the Gambia, the EU delegation to the Gambia, and Article 19. Over to you, Suleiman. That was the letter that was written to the President of the Republic of the Gambia by the Gambian diaspora, President Adama Barrow. Over to you, Suleiman.
Thank you very much, Sister Elizabeth. We start the program. We have Dr. Lamin Sabali join us, and I think Sister Jane Fall might be online too, but we'll check once we get to her. We start the program. Brother James Bahum from MSDJ. Brother James, I want to start with you based on the amount of work done by the MSDJ. Hence, we are talking about the strategy to be deployed, the communication to be heard in order to actualize the rights of the Gambians in the diaspora to vote. And your organization have done a comprehensive study and carried out a brilliant work identifying the resources, the capacity, and in fact pointing to the structures that can be used in order to have this done. From that strength, I want you to come on and start by giving us some of the strategies. In brief, give us the background of that and give us some of the strategies that you think that needed to be used, and then we move on to the other experts on the team. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Brother Ben, and thank you very much to the moderators, your co-moderators tonight. Thank you very much to Gambia House for the invitation to come and speak on this very important matter. Also, I extend greetings to all our listeners over there, and to also thank them for taking their time to join us in these important discussions. Ben, last week we talked about the figures, the numbers especially, but also about the law, which we have, I believe, laid to rest, as it were. That now there is no argument anymore about the legal basis for the diaspora to vote, to be registered and to vote. That quarrel has been settled, as it were, amicably. We also talked about the diaspora figure, populations and where they reside, to give an overview of the work that we have done, but also so that the IEC, which is mandated to register Gambians in the diaspora, can use. We have had many interactions with them, and we have provided technical support to them regarding diaspora populations, where they reside, and the important areas that we need to concentrate on to ensure that the Gambian diaspora is registered to vote in December. Also, we spoke briefly, but I will return to this question about the technicalities, if you like, and the logistical, issues that we have to deal with in ensure that the diaspora is enfranchised in time for December. Now, the MSDG has been in consultation with the IEC for a very long time. It goes back to 2017. And throughout this period, it was clear that, the diaspora was going to vote. And repeated promises by the IEC in the person of the chairman has also, reinforced that promise. So the diaspora pretty much was waiting for them now to come out and start the registration of the diaspora. And in the first schedule of registration that they produced, I think back in January, the diaspora was listed. It was listed that the diaspora would be registered in July, beginning the 1st of July to the 31st of July. However, recently, the second schedule does not mention the diaspora at all. And the chairman had stated that because there are legal issues that in the sense that one needed to be residing in a constituency in order to be registered, even though that has now been dispelled. But that was the reason he gave as to why the diaspora could not vote. I am happy to report that statement has been revoked, and that now we must now concentrate on the technicalities and the modalities of ensuring that the diaspora is registered and to vote in the December elections. So, in a nutshell, there are issues regarding the diaspora population and where they live. That information has been shared with the IEC. We actually provided them with a lot of data about where the Gambian diaspora resides, the countries with the greater number of Gambians. And last week I touched on that briefly. And the top 10, 15 countries rather, includes the United States, the United Kingdom, Italy, Spain, Germany, Senegal, Sweden, France, Guinea-Bissau, Netherlands, Norway, Switzerland, Finland, Belgium, Austria. And these are the top 15 countries with the most Gambians. There is also which we believe need to be factored into their plans for registration as a priority. However, there are 10 other countries which we believe need to be considered in their registration schedule because these are countries where Gambia have diplomatic presence and that therefore it may be able to facilitate diaspora voting a lot easier than perhaps in a country where we do not have a representation. So what we now need to focus on is how do we do the registration? Now, we're saying that the IEC needs, first of all, and as urgently as possible, to register, to ensure that the recruitment of diaspora electoral officers takes place urgently, perhaps even, tomorrow if we can. But that they need to really take this step as urgently as possible to ensure that we recruit the necessary numbers, which ranges between 170 to 200 electoral officers throughout Europe and Gambian diaspora in Africa and other places where we hope to see Gambians registered shortly. And that those would be trained and go through the induction process, also given the necessary resources to be able to conduct the registration of Gambians. There is also the need for how many machines, for instance, registration machines will be required. I note that they have, in their last press conference, the IEC was able to demonstrate how the registration was going to be conducted using technology, that would make it easier and safer to register Gambians on the ground. That process has started. So at least we also want to congratulate, in that case, the IEC for commencing this arduous, work. And we hope that the same level of urgency that is given to the registration on the ground is also replicated in the diaspora in the near future, so that we can get registered.
Thank you, Brother James. If you want to hold on there, we want to play the audio, the video that the IEC chairman have made these statements for the benefit for viewers that have not had the statements before. Then we'll move on and come back to you on the strategy or the mechanisms to be employed. Sister Mai, if you're ready to play, okay. Go on.
Okay, I am. I'm waiting for next cue.
Governors, religious leaders, members of the Gambian Diaspora, ladies and gentlemen. Last year, at the third Security National Forum, I said that the Independent Electoral Commission, IEC, envisaged a relationship whereby the diaspora, the 8th region of the Gambia, will vote and voted for in Gambian elections. Today, it is my privilege to provide you with an update as we move towards the election season of 2021-2022. In July 2020, we IEC published the voter registration calendar, announcing that diaspora voter registration will take place between 1st and 31st July 2021. This timeline remains in place. Although I recently announced a delay in the start of voter registration in the Gambia, the dates of out-of-country diaspora voter registration remains July 2021. In line with our responsibilities, together with partners and stakeholders, we will embark on specific diaspora voter education in the coming months. However, I now take this opportunity to remind Gambians in the diaspora to get your proofs of identity ready in good time for voter registration. You will need to show valid Gambian passport, government identity cards, government birth certificates in order to be registered on the out-of-country diaspora voter register. Any of these documents can prove your government citizenship and your ability to be registered. At this forum last year, I stated that the conduct of elections is the business of all citizens and stakeholders, and the conduct of a credible election is characterized by inclusiveness, transparency, accountability, and competitiveness. In line with these purposes, The IEC will continue to collaborate with stakeholders and seek technical guidance regarding the operations and logistics of diaspora voter registration and diaspora voting in 2021. Ladies and gentlemen, as we look forward to 2021, as the year when for the first time, the government diaspora are given the vote to practice. In practice, I would like to call attention to some of the limitations of out-of-country diaspora voting. It will not be practicable and feasible for the IEC to set up voters in centers, in polling stations, and polling stations in each and every one of the hundreds of foreign countries, cities, and towns where Gambians reside. Instead, the IEC will follow international best practice in out-of-country voting by setting up voter registration centers and polling stations in the countries, cities, and towns with the highest concentration of Gambian residents based on credible diaspora population research. As such, we will collaborate with diaspora and civil society organizations on diaspora voter education so that the selected countries, cities, and towns are published in good time amongst the Gambian diaspora. It is the experience of other countries. We expect that Gambians in diaspora may have to travel from afar to go to these electoral locations, both for election and voting. This may affect the size of voter registration and election voter turnout. But the right of Gambians in diaspora to vote and voted for is planned. Diaspora voting will start in 2021. As it is with the diaspora, they have always to go to the extra mile to, so to speak, to make their contributions to Gambian development. Many thanks and appreciation for the organizers, DK partners, and may Allah answer our prayers.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Mike. Just to remind listeners, this announcement was made by the chairman of the IEC, Mr. Aliu Mamanjai, on the 10th of January 2021, a few months ago. And this is a cast iron promise that he made, and very clear that they were ready and in position. No question of resources, no question of finance, and they have actually had a strategy, just as been promised by our MSDG that there was a strategy present, but we failed to have this commitment follow through. Liz, you want to come in?
Yes, Suleiman, thanks ever so much. And thanks ever so much, Mike, for that brilliant reminder. It was in January, 10th of January 2021, that the chairman of the IEC, and I quote him saying that the diaspora will vote for the first time in 2021. We are now in May of the same year, barely 5 months, and the same IEC chair is saying that the diaspora cannot vote. We asked what has changed. I quoted the IEC chair last week as having said that they have done, for the diaspora to be able to vote, there has to be a change in the constitution. The IEC chair also said that the diaspora is asking for 5 constituencies abroad, and unless the law is changed, it remains that they cannot vote. We have tried everything possible to make sure, but again, unless the constitution is changed, we cannot allow them to vote. I now ask the IEC chair, whose responsibility it is to demarcate, if even he is saying that they are going to demarcate 5 new constituencies, because he said they did everything possible. We asked the chairman of the IEC to tell us if he has demarcated the diaspora constituencies. If he has, we asked the government of the Gambia why they have not sent a bill to Parliament to change the provision to recognize the new demarcated constituencies. I also ask the political actors, the political parties who have got representatives in parliament, all the political parties with representatives in parliament, and all the independent members of parliament, why they have not sent in a private member's bill for the amendment of the said constitutional clauses. We are not taking any prisoners. We want the truth from those who are elected to represent us, and we want them to tell us if the political will exists from the executive right through to our elected members of parliament. Over to our panelists. Thank you, Suleiman.
Thank you, Sister Liz. This is the Diaspora Dialogue on Diaspora Vote 2021, and we are discussing the strategy for diaspora registration and communication. Hearing the evidence, the commitment been made and the question been asked, and as always, we blame ourselves for not doing, but actually we have heard the evidence from Brother James that on behalf of the diaspora, the MSDG have done all that needed to be done, and the enabling environment was on the side of the government and the IEC that mandated to do this. I want to bring the two activists present, then I'll move on to the experts again. I have Sister Maisi, then I will have Sister Jainaba Fall. Sister Mai, how do you feel now, knowing that everything that's meant to be done on our behalf has been done, but now we are facing to be the possibility of not being enfranchised?
Thank you very much, Brother Ben, for having me, the Gambia House and organizers of this event today. I think this is a very, very important discussion. And like you said, James, first of all, I would say that it's very positive to hear that that statement has been revoked, the statement stating that the diaspora cannot vote, that this statement has been revoked. That is very positive indeed. But like you said, we still feel that we've done everything possible. And here today, we are talking about strategies of communication. Mm-hmm. What should we do to actualize diaspora voting? Mm-hmm. The diaspora is the easiest. I would just start by saying that the diaspora is the easiest constituency to access and coordinate. There is no segment of the Gambian society that uses technology, online media, and social media like the diaspora. Mm-hmm. So the registration of the diaspora should not be a problem at all. We feel that we've done everything that we should have done. And if the IAC chairman came in Schedule 1 and stated that the diaspora would be registered in July, 1st of June to 31st of July 2001. And then coming back again in the second schedule, saying that the diaspora cannot vote unless the constitution has changed, like Sister Sose just said, what has changed? Mm-hmm. It was the responsibility of the IAC to go back to the constitution and see if what provision is there in the constitution to facilitate diaspora voting before coming out in public, making a schedule and a date and a promising diasporans that you have the right to vote and register, even setting a timeline. I think that is very disrespectful to the diaspora. Mm-hmm. Not only to the diaspora, but to Gambia as a nation, to our democracy and everything that we stand for. Now we're talking about moving forward. I would recommend the setting up of a centralized communication strategy, mm-hmm. which aim at more coordinated, more visible, and more viable means of increasing diaspora engagement and awareness. Mm-hmm. Within the past weeks, we've seen the IAC going from the diaspora cannot vote to now everything is in place. What we need now it's the technicalities to actualize diaspora registration. What has changed? Mm-hmm. Our level of engagement has changed. Mm-hmm. Our level of coordination has changed. Our level of being visible as a diaspora has changed. The way we have mobilized have changed. The diaspora has shown that we are not being taken, we are not going to be allowed to be taken as prisoners.
Thank you, Sister Mai. Just to rectify the mistake there, the statement first was enabling, said that we are going to vote, and the last statement was that we are not, because this audio played was from January. But the last message that came out a few weeks ago, that's when he made the statement that we can vote. But again, brother James have clarified that the reason given.
Shall I just step in for a little?
Yeah. Okay, go on.
Yeah.
To rectify what I said there earlier about the revocation of the statement made by the IEC chairman that the diaspora cannot vote. That is an error on my part. I was going by the video that was played, not realizing the time frame there, and I apologize for that. But we wrote to the IEC chairman about a week or so ago to put our case, to reinforce that case for the diaspora voting registration in particular, following his statement at the last press conference. But the letter has not been, we haven't had a reply from them yet. So that revocation that I mentioned earlier didn't actually take place. So my apologies for that. In any case, if we're talking about, and I think this is where our concentration should be, on the presidential election scheduled for December, there he mentioned that the law has to be changed in order for the diaspora to be enfranchised or to be registered. Now, that is not entirely the case, to be honest, because that has already been laid to rest. He's saying we have to be the individuals have to live within in a constituency in order to be registered. Now, according to the law, specifically the Elections Act of 2009, Section 3, 141, and other provisions said that Gambians can actually be registered in the existing 53 constituencies, the Gambian diaspora, that is, from where they came from. So, for instance, if you came from Banjul or Banjul North, you can still be registered as a voter in Banjul North, but out of country. And therefore, if you come from maybe Serekunda, you can still be registered as a voter in Serekunda out of country. So you are still registered within one of those 53 constituencies, but as an out-of-country voter. So what the chairman said there about the requirement or the need to change the law in order for the diaspora to be registered, it's not really the case. So I just wanted to make that rectification very quickly. Now that it means, therefore, that the IEC must now step up their game and start the process of registering Gambians in the diaspora. If you come from, I don't know where you come from, Mr. Ben, but I suspect it's Bakau. Yeah. If you are from Bakau, you can still be registered as a voter in Bakau, but out of country. And this is what we have been trying to say to the IEC, that there are no legal impediments in the part of the Gambian diaspora being registered, because they can be registered as a Bakau resident can be registered in Bakau as a voter in Bakau, even though you are out of country voter. So we need to make that clarification and to reinforce that the revocation that we are waiting for of that statement that the IEC chairman made is still awaited earnestly.
Okay. Thank you, James. That's quite clear now to all of us, and I think it should be clear to the IEC. Sister Jane Bafal, considering that everything that needed to be done after is done, there's no law to stop us from hindering our right to vote or to register to vote. How do you feel about this?
Good afternoon to all the panelists, and greetings to the listeners.
Mm-hmm.
This is Sustainable from Gambia. I'm sorry, I'm having some bad connection, so I didn't get the last part of your question, but I think you said, considering that we have the right to vote,
Yeah.
what was the remaining of that question?
Considering we have the right to vote, and on behalf of the diaspora, the MSDG have done their homework and presented all the evidence, and there's no question of finance, there's no question of resources, but it seems there's a lack of political will. One area that the hindrance that the IEC chairman have raised have been pointed out that it's not necessary because we can register, according to where we come from, but as out of country, and then the presidential elections is no problem for us to take part in. And as an activist, what is your feeling, or what remarks do you have to share?
Yes, thank you. Absolutely. I mean, as you've stated, the Constitution as well as the Election Act has already guaranteed the right for the diaspora to vote. And the Supreme Court even took it further to say that the IEC should register by now the diasporas in order for them to participate in this next coming election. Based on the information that we've all heard, it's clear that at this point is not an issue as to whether we can vote or not, as the issue is political will. All we need to do is to have the political will and adhere to the rule and laws of the country to ensure that we exercise our right to vote. So engaging more with the IEC and wanting to understand at this point where they are in the process of getting in the registration process. As panelist James mentioned, we should be in the process right now recruiting, getting all the officers in place to ensure that these key countries would have diasporas can vote. So I think that, the main issue here is the political will and really understanding that 200,000 diasporas are out there that need to participate and exercise their right to vote. So we need to have transparency, accountability, and really upholding the rules of the country to show really what, if we want to call ourselves democracy, these are the main principles and foundation of a democracy. Mm-hmm. And the diaspora are key stakeholders in this process. And we are no longer, we fought for 22 years and we're going to keep fighting to ensure that there is rule of law and democracy and we all exercise our rights. We are all Gambians and we want to do this collaboratively, peacefully, and orderly.
Thank you. Thank you, Sister Zainab. Thank you. Dr. Sabali, good afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon to everybody. First, I would like to say thank you to the Gambia House for the invitation. And I'm also pleased to recognize, sorry about that, the presence of co-panelists and expert contributors like James Bahum and the rest of the group. I'm also very glad to be invited once again. And I think this is a foregone conclusion. The Constitution is very, very clear that Gambians, wherever they may be resided, if they meet the minimum qualification, if they can actually, determine their citizenship and then actually meet the age requirement, they should be registered to vote wherever they are. This is a constitutional stipulation. Mm-hmm. And then the Supreme Court went further to really re-emphasize that. Mm-hmm. So the IEC now, what they need to do is to execute their function to actually register Gambians in the diaspora, because absolutely there is no single deterrent. There is no single reason why I cannot or you cannot be registered, because the Constitution stipulates that. And I'm letting this is where I used to work. The IEC, I serve as a senior electoral officer responsible for training, communication, and public affairs. I think the chairman and the commissioners need to be actually reminded that if they fail to register Gambians, this would actually constitute clear intentional violation of the constitutional provision, and they can be dragged to court for that. I would want to re-emphasize that the money is available. The constitutional requirement is very clear. The IEC has to execute its function to register Gambians wherever they may be located. If they fail to do that, let them know that it is a blatant violation of the Constitution of the Republic of the Gambia. They need to know that.
Based on the topic discussed today, and MSDG Rep here, Brody James, have talked about the information shared and the technical support given to the IEC, and your expertise as on elections and former employee of the IEC. And can you talk us through this, the situation as registration, logistics, the process to register? Now, how easier is this, or what emphasis do you want to make on where we have to look on, or the IEC have to look on to?
Well, the Gambia government has actually identified the diaspora as the region, and the IEC chairman made it very clear that if Gambians are to be registered, it wouldn't be everywhere. But Gambians, they have already identified countries with the highest concentration of Gambians. So I'm pretty sure that identification is done. Now, what is important is to deploy the resources and the personnel to these countries, especially, for instance, Minnesota as an example. The facility, the Gambian Association here can easily work with either the embassy or the IEC to provide the facility for them to actually deploy the resources and the personnel to come here to register Gambians. I mean, it's easy to, every Gambian here has an origin. I am definitely a native of Badibs. To come here to register me, I'll be registered under my constituency called Ilyasa constituency. It's as easy as that. There's no need to create a new constituency to be dedicated to the diaspora. Every Gambian, wherever they are located in the diaspora, come from an area, come from a native constituency. Like James Bahum said, they need to be registered under those constituencies. So as far as logistics is concerned, I don't see any logistical nightmare. It's a question of doing it. And the money is available, they have the resources available, the personnel available. So IEC has to actually show their willingness to do what they're supposed to do. Otherwise, they are really, violating the Constitution of the Republic of the Gambia.
Thank you, Mr. Shabali.
If Guinea-Bissau, a country as poor as Guinea-Bissau can do it, a country as poor as Guinea-Bissau can do it, we have seen, so many times Guineans in the Gambia participate in their national election. If a poor country like Guinea, can actually have their diaspora citizens to vote, how about the Gambia? This is just a betrayal of the wishes of the Gambians in the diaspora.
Thank you, Doctor. We'll come back to you. I may move to Joey, elections expert, Joey Gasno.
Yeah, thank you very much. And it's nice to hear most of you making issues about the diaspora vote. From my perspective, I think we have a legitimate case already. There's no hiding place for the IEC on this issue because all the feasibility work has been done through what we've given them, all the information of how many people are resident in the diaspora. Situation has changed in such a way that we have improved technology in the sense that it could be done quicker. Now, I'm going to start with the legal point. I'm surprised that a chairman is not making any effort to abide by the decision of the Supreme Court. And I'm surprised that no one has alerted him that by doing that, it could be contempt. Because the law in that case of Bakari Davo and others clearly states that Gambians in the diaspora should be registered. So now is it a question of going back to the court seeking directions on how it should be implemented? No. He has to come and explain why we can't have the vote. Now, when I look at the documentation, we have enough evidence to establish documentation in the diaspora. We all linked with these organizations. We all attend all these functions and they got our details, one way or the other. The other bit we have to look at is that when you compare it to when we registered Gambians for the first time under IEC in 1996 or 95, it was not more than 460,000 Gambians that were registered within 8 weeks. Mr. Sabali or Dr. Sabali, you may wish to verify whether my statistics are correct. But from my understanding, that was done within 8 weeks. And you have 200,000 in the diaspora with documentation, with proper technology, and you're saying you can't do it. I am not.
Joey, I just want to put this question to you, and if you can help us, to give a picture. Let's say now, to use England as an example.
Yes.
And to explain how feasible it is to get diasporans to vote. Just as our sister Maimuna, she have explained, Gambian diaspora would be the easiest consequence to deal with due to our interactions with social media and the availability of the technology, our access to technology. Can you give us a practical example of England? Then I think.
Well, for England, basically, you look at the bigger cities like London, Manchester, Birmingham. Well, I have to say United Kingdom to qualify myself. Yeah. Look at Scotland, Wales. You can say about 7 constituencies, major. When our constituencies with a small c. And what happened is anybody that's within that area could go and register there. We have enough resources in the embassy that can guide them through and show them where Gambians are mainly based. And that could be a stepping stone. Also, you have MSDG, of which most of the stakeholders involved in it were resident or are still resident here that can assist them. So it shouldn't be a problem. I mean,
actually, may I emphasize actually that, as you said about how we settle in major towns and cities in wherever we are, and if you take an example of United Kingdom, that can be a sample of Europe and other American and so on. But in all these cities, we have Gambian organizations who are in touch and can be easily coordinated through the MSDG projects to be done. This is again to emphasize on the possibilities of in done. Now is for us diasporans to push onto that.
Precisely. I don't think I wouldn't dispute. I wouldn't dispute on that issue because the Gambians, we have enough organizations here that can facilitate giving them information about where they should be. Because registration is a fundamental right, and no one should politicize it. You know, everybody, being a born Gambian or being a Gambian resident in the diaspora, should be encouraged, irrespective of his political affiliation, to have the right to vote. And this is something which I don't want to bug on. I blame the political elite for this, because this is something that they should have resolved at the earliest opportunity. This should have been in the books immediately the parliament was constituted. But unfortunately, they had other priorities, other things which they consider as priorities. And now we are at the mercy of the IEC, of which the IEC are not ready to comply with a judgment. And that's something which has to be re-emphasized. It's a judgment they're breaching.
Joey, we'll come back to you. I just want to follow through to this point on the delivery of the practicalities of registration. And I want to go back to Brother James Bahu on based on the MSDG strategy and work they have carried out to deliver. As he talked about, what IC need to do is to recruit from who, mainly from the diaspora here, and the logistics that are needed and the process to get us registered. Brother James, can you move on to those practical points, please?
Thank you once again, Ben. I'll touch briefly. I'll go back somewhat, if you allow me, just so that we are clear about the fact that there was no revocation on the part of the IEC of the statement made by the chairman himself. And as I want to reiterate that we are still waiting for that revocation, and that because the law is clear about the entitlement of diaspora to be registered in their country's constituency of origin. So once that is settled, then the logistics, of course, will follow. In fact, I think they should, by now, be making arrangements to come to the diaspora. First of all, what they need to do is to recruit between 170 to 200 diaspora electoral officers. And I spoke to a number of members of Gambian community organizations here. And one of them said to me, we can even do it for free. We can even pay our own fares and use our own resources to support this process. So that also is there. So within those communities, we can recruit up to 200 registration officers for the diaspora. It is left to the IEC now to commence that process and give us the green light so that we can start helping in the process of recruitment, training, induction, and so forth. The other thing was where Gambians are. I've given you a list of the countries that have the highest number of Gambian populations. But within, for instance, you asked Mr. Joey Goswell about the actual registration logistics, about how registration can be conducted, but also where. And he mentioned some of the cities and the main concentration of Gambian populations in those cities: Manchester, London, Leeds, Birmingham, and so forth and so on. And in all of those countries, there are Gambian community groups that can support this process of registration once the IEC is ready to recruit from within those groups, and we can make recommendations to them. We have indicated to them that this is possible, and we are able to make recommendations of the organizations that can support this. It would be a pleasure to do so in our continuing engagement with the IEC. The other thing is about one of the big problems or logistical challenges that people have spoken about is the use of the system. Of course, there was a time when the talk was mainly about paper ballots. They have taken a step backwards from that for whatever reasons, but we are able to still, vote using the marble system. To that extent, as far as that is concerned, we have also made recommendations. Now, you know that the barrel, vote barrel that is used, that contains the receptacle for the marbles, is a very cumbersome kind of contraption, and we believe that we need not really stick to that particular form or of a receptacle for the marbles. What we have suggested is that we can find a more malleable container that can take these ballots, this marble, and it would reduce perhaps the cost of transporting and transferring all of these ballots from Gambia to the.
Brother James, you're breaking up there.
Are you hearing now?
Yeah, we're hearing now. Yeah.
Yes, and so we have made that recommendation to them that we can actually use more malleable drums or containers that can take the marbles as it is. But also, depending on how many areas for registration have been identified, it will be that we will need to recruit electoral officers from those areas. In some cases, traveling from nearby, environs of registration centers, people might be ready to do that. They might just have to take, it would be a train ride or a bus ride in most cases, to come to the registration centers so that they can be registered. And that is the same way that it might also be done. So these are all have all been placed before the IEC in our technical engagements with them and the technical workshops that we have held with them. Assuming that there would be about 20 presidential candidates, and the diaspora voting booths we might only require 65 polling stations, for instance. 15 countries, 1,300 plastic ballot drums or buckets, as it were, and so forth and so on. So these are data and information that is already available to the IEC, and we have done the studies. We have done the maths, and we have presented this to the IEC. So there is no excuse at all on the part of the IEC to say that we cannot vote. The legal issues are clear. The logistics are on with them. The technical challenges that we face have been faced down, and we have been able to give them convincing data and information that would help the process for diaspora voting.
So, James, let me just bring in Dr. Sabali on his experience working in the IEC to deliberate on what you have said, and especially talking about the drums and the voting. And I will emphasize here, we are talking about 20 candidates. Yes, might be interested people, but history has shown that all people that make their interest would not end up being on the nomination. Mr. Sabal. Dr. Sabal.
Yeah, thank you very much. I mean, it looks like Mr. Bahum's group has already done a significant amount of work that has actually made IEC's work a lot easier, especially dealing with what may have been perceived to be logistical nightmares. I mean, yes. So I don't see any reason. Absolutely, I think even here when the CRC embarked upon the diaspora consultation, Gambian organizations all over, I think including Europe and the United States here, provided the logistics, I mean, to the group to do the engagement. It was very easy. And I think CRC also went to countries where you have a greater concentration of Gambians. So I'm pretty sure, I mean, based on the analysis given by Mr. Bahum, it looks like, areas where Gambians are identified, areas where, dealing with the ballot drum problem, because I think that could have been an area where one could argue that would bring about logistical problem, but you can replace those with malleable stuff like, boxes. Those are available everywhere. So as far as the registration processes go, I mean, the way it is going to the way it is unfolding in the Gambia, it will be a lot easier in the diaspora because we are not many, 15 countries, for instance. I mean, James has given a conservative number of polling stations, registration stations that may be needed, the number of personnel that would also be needed. And then, of course, it will be very interesting to realize that Gambians are very generous people. In the diaspora, I don't think Gambians would actually charge IEC to be paid. We would definitely volunteer to give our time for a country based on patriotism. So, like I have been scratching my brain to find out an area that would actually prevent IEC from registering Gambians, I don't see any reason. So that is what has been disturbing me, though, because look, 15 countries, for instance, the number of diaspora Gambians to be registered, maybe as far as documentation is concerned, every Gambian, whether naturalized or not, may have an identification card. We're not going to be needing attestation here at all. So in terms of infrastructure, I don't see any problem. In terms of personnel, I don't see any problem. So I don't know. I've been part of the 2000 presidential election, 2001 presidential election, and 2002 parliamentary election. I mean, yes, during those days, the number of candidates used to be few, but 2021, we're expecting more candidates, maybe about 20 presidential candidates. But that cannot be used as a ground to actually argue that because of the Gambians in the diaspora cannot be registered. So looking at every possibility, and I think there is no single reason one can argue, that the IEC can actually depend on and say this is the reason why they cannot extend, they cannot register Gambians in the diaspora. So James and his group, they have done a phenomenally great job. They're even making the job of IEC a lot easier for them, though.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sabali. I quite agree on the points you made on what the job MSDG have done. And as I always wanted others to hear, because diasporans keep on blaming themselves, we are not organized, this or that. But probably most of those people were not aware that there's an organization on behalf of the diaspora have done almost everything that needed to be done. And all we need to have is a political will, and it should happen. But now the political will is in the hands of us Gambians for that matter, not only diasporans, but Gambians, to make sure our democracy, the integrity of our democracy is protected for the interests of our progress. I'll come back to our sisters, the activists on the panel. Sister Mike.
I think, Brother Ben, the ground has been cleared now. When it comes to the law, we don't even have to sit down here today talking about the law. No. I think that is just, how do I call it? Yeah, that is just taking our attention to something else. We've talked about that, everything that we need to know. And it's interesting that the IEC chairperson, the chairman, is not recognizing that non-compliance with the Supreme Court judgment would lead to equals contempt. But that is his problem. What we should focus on now, as the diaspora, like James Bahum has just mentioned that, the next step is the diaspora register, the IEC should recruit an induction of 170 to 200 officers. How do we do it? And now we've talking, you are saying that nobody knew that the MSDG has done all this job. We come back to coordination. We come back to awareness. How do we coordinate? The diaspora is made up of competent. Let's put this demand on the IAC to use diaspora competence. We have men and women who are experts. Technology and in all fields, in electoral, in voting processes, internationally and globally. We have them all over the place. You have even the local people, locally, in organizations, whether in Birmingham, in Norway, Oslo, in Sweden.
Mike, can I just ask you the same questions again? Considering Norway, we all have seen the evidence of the activities that happen when that you guys organize as local organizers, and the experience you people have in organizing yourselves and doing things for yourself. And can you point us to those strengths? Emphasize on those trends on how you would have done it in Norway, and concentrate on Norway as I bring others to do for their own regions.
Let's just take an example of the CRR, the Constitutional Review Commission, when they were in Europe doing their consultation tour.
Yeah,
they came to Norway, and the Gambian Association in Norway and Gambia House, we have had this State of the Nation every year, the past 3 years, that Gambia House have organized with the MSDG. And that is just a way of seeing how coordinated the Gambian community is in Norway. There is not only the Gambia House, but there are other communities as well, organizations within the Gambian community in Norway, and which have shown a high level of excellence, a high level of competence, a high level of patriotism. When they are called to duty, I see no reason that they would say no. Especially when it comes to an issue so important as engaging diaspora voting and registration. I don't see anything. Like the previous speakers have said, I don't see any logistic problem.
Yeah.
The only thing we should do now, we should not leave this in the hands of the IEC.
Mm-hmm.
I think the Gambian, when we are not asked to come to the table, I think we should push forward to say that, you know what, knock on their doors and say that, you know what, we are here. This is about us and we have to take control. I think we've been relying on the IAC for too long and believing in whatever they said. And I think what happened now, what we are experiencing now is just a breach of contract.
Yeah.
It is a lack of trust and it should be taken seriously. It shouldn't be politicized. We do not have trust that what they are saying or they will do, that they will do. That when they say they will deliver, they will deliver. Because we have had the experiences. And now it is our turn to sit down and say, you know what, we are not leaving our fate in your hands. We have to participate fully. We have to make ourselves visible.
Thank you, thank you, Sister Mai. I quite agree on this point, and this is the reason why we're having this dialogue on this platform. And we thank the organizers, the civil society consultation team, Duga, Right to Know, Gambia House, Norway, and the MSDU project. And it's not restricted to these organizations, but we are keep starting up, continuing the conversation to get more Gambian organizations to join.
Brother Ben, can I just come in before I land? Because you were talking about the experiences. One of the examples also is just this program that we've been having here.
Yeah.
It's coordinated through the Gambia House, isn't it?
Yes.
And other organizations. And how many programs have you had? No one is paying anyone. And this is just a manifestation that when Gambians are called to duty, to national duty, they will come. And that should not be an excuse. And maybe we should just widen the horizon, widen the playing field for others to come in and invite more people to join in as a coordinated effort towards approaching the government.
Thank you.
And the IEC.
Thank you very much. Sister Jane Abafa.
Yes.
Sister Janaba. Yeah. Sister Janaba, considering what we've been talking about, and I'm not sure how much you were aware, whether you were in the diaspora the time the CRC visited or the time the TRRC visited, but I know you'll be aware of all the things that the diaspora have been working within their community, organizing and making it happen. And knowing the nature of Gambia, I know we are very, we are very hard on ourselves, but knowing the nature of sacrifice always, especially when it comes to national duty, what's your take on the possibilities?
Thank you, Suleiman. I am so sorry. I'm having a really bad connection, and I'm going to ask you to repeat your question one more time.
Okay, the question is, just to keep it short, the CRC have been here, the TRRC have been here, and this platform, this network of diaspora through Gambia House have hosted programs of all the CRC deliberations, and the communities that they visited have hosted them, and in Birmingham and other places have even provided the feeding and other things, and made them welcome. And considering this evidence, how did you see the possibilities of the same thing happening with the registration and elections?
Well, I think I got part of it. I got part of it. I think when it comes to the registration process, it's a matter of being transparent and open about what the process needs to be, if I understand your question correctly. At this point, I think from what we have all discussed, I've gathered that there are no issues here. I mean, we know that resources are available, funding is available, technology is there. It's a matter of implementation and execution. So we want to understand and demand answers as to why are we coming to a crossroads at this point and having issues of trust and transparency in the registration process only for the diaspora. It feels like it's voter suppression towards the diaspora. And, Sister Maimuna already said, we are very proactive. We're innovative. We've always engaged, and we serve our country very well. And we should not come to this point of misunderstanding or confusion whether the diaspora should have the right to vote or not. So we are demanding that, you know, we are able to vote in the next election, because the issue is coming down to political will, as we have seen. I mean, I don't see any other issue besides political will. And we need to understand why that is happening, and why is that only towards the diaspora. We are seen as partners. I mean, we are part of the process in developing this country, and we need to be able to vote. So, I mean, the bottom line is now, how can we make it happen? How can we get registered and vote? So we need to engage with the IEC and other stakeholders and find out how we can make that happen.
Thank you. Thank you. Joey Gazwell. Joey. Joey. Okay, I might just move.
Yeah, hey, okay, I'm back. Yes.
Okay, Joey. Yeah, I mean, as we have, I mean, it's just all it's made very clear. There's no legal issues. There's no other issues. Now, let's just concentrate on what we have to do, the communication, the strategy, and to implement this from now on, especially on behalf of the diaspora, and to make it possible. What would be your contribution on that?
Well, I would like us to get more involved with the organizations that we have already established within the diaspora, because these are the people that will really make maximum impact. Because if these people come out and support and also give us the necessary assistance, it becomes an easy fight with a small f against IEC. Now, what we need is, we know because of COVID-19, there's been inactivity in most of these community aid associations, but they've had their structures, we've got their lists that we can get, and then we can engage with them so that they get more involved in this process. I mean, that's the first. And then secondly, what we need to do is that I've listened to the wonderful letter which was read by my good sister Elizabeth Sosa-Cisse, written by James Baum on behalf of the group. That should be cascaded around. We should, if it means, like in UK here, we need to take this to higher authorities. At the end of the day, this government, the Barrow government and the IEC, relies heavily on foreign donors. And if we allow to them say that, look, this is what's happened, we've got a judgment, we've got everything in place, and they're not doing it, it will question the credibility of the 2021 elections. So all is not lost. We just have to, it's a shame we're getting old now, but we can still go back to the streets and lobby for our right to vote.
Thank you.
That's one of the other aspects. And the other thing is that we need to educate some people that are in the diaspora, because they are looking at this from a political angle, not realizing this could even affect them. And there should be more education on it, because people, at the moment, I know this program, if you do a viewing, you may find that some people are not even listening to it, because they think that it's a political game, a game, whereas it's not. It's a patriotic game. It's a patriotic mission that we should all advocate for. For God's sake, look at what happened in South Africa. How many years did those people suffer for the right to vote? And here we are denied that right to vote. But when we go to Gambia, they want our remittances.
Thank you. Thank you, Brother Joey. Dr. Sabali.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ben, once again. I think the letter is the first start. I mean, the letter of protest sent to the president. But beside that, I think there should be constant engagement with the IEC too. I think the individual organizations the individual Gambians organizations in the diaspora should also, because this is apolitical, they should also actually rally around a protest letter and they remind the IEC to execute their responsibilities. I think engagement with the civil society organizations in the Gambia too, and also individual political parties, just to mount a concerted effort to put the pressure where necessary. So I think the pressure pressing should be, two fronts maybe on the IEC, which is the referee here, and the government to show the political will. But I think since the National Assembly already appropriated the budget for registration of voters, I think that part is already done. So I think it's the execution and implementation. Maybe the IEC, the first thing the letter did was to debunk the IEC reliance on creating a legislation or provision, which to me is unnecessary, because that cannot be used as a legal evidence to support whatever they are saying now. So it's execution, and execution is what is important now. The Gambians, the diaspora, the Barrow government knows very well. Even the Ajame and the APRC knows very well the diaspora is a political and economic giant. The amount of remittances Gambians sent to the Gambia is an evidence. The amount of pressure from all quarters that was actually put, on the fight against dictatorship until it was removed. That power and resources still reside in the Gambians in the diaspora. I only hope they are aware of that fact, that the power, the unity that was exerted to remove the dictatorship can always be activated at any time. So no government or institution should play with the diaspora. But I think engagement should be a continuous thing. The letter is a good start. I think civil society organizations, both within and outside the Gambia, should also come in unison and then also continue to put pressure on the IEC. Maybe the last resort would be to take legal actions against the IEC, because already the Supreme Court made a declaration that Gambians in the diaspora are eligible, and of course they should be registered to vote. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Sabali. Let me try and get Koto James back again. Koto James.
Yes, Ben.
Koto James, we were trying to get hold of someone to come on to another point, but I want you to tell us from your experience in activism, not just personally on your MSDG portfolio, but as a citizen, and how you see the diaspora as it is, and how we're going to move forward from there on. And we'll try and get someone to come on to speak, probably on behalf of MSDG, on how you guys going to move from there. We're trying to get Professor Jibril if he's available.
Thank you, Ben. I think the strategy that was laid out by the MSDG can be seen as part of the larger struggle which the Gambian diaspora embarked upon, that eventually saw the removal of dictatorship. Dictatorship had denied the Gambian diaspora their entitlement to vote, to be registered and to vote, in spite of clear stipulations, constitutional stipulations. To allow that condition or that denial to embrace the diaspora would be a major indictment of this government, and that it would mean a continuation of the dictatorship in so many ways. What I want to say, though, is that regarding the IEC and given our continuing struggle, if you like, to enfranchise the diaspora as an extension of that larger struggle for emancipation from dictatorship. One of the outcomes that we were looking for was to have the diaspora be a central part or a party to the national decision-making process through elections. So right now, we are at a point where the diaspora has been the most ingenious constituency of the Gambian family. And in our fight against dictatorship, we also factored in our rights as Gambians to be part of the decision-making process. And now, where we are right now is clear. We have said this before, but I just want to reiterate it, that there are no legal impediments to the Gambians diaspora's entitlement to vote or to be registered. There is no question about the lack of resources. There is no question about the lack, of a clear strategy on how to register, but also prepare for the vote in 2021 for the diaspora. So if there were any challenges, those challenges have been removed. If there were any barriers to the Gambian diaspora to register and to vote, those challenges and those barriers have also been removed. Now, it is what most of the speakers here have said before, that what remains to be done is to find the political will to do it and to do it urgently. Now, we still have time to register the Gambian diaspora and to prepare us to vote. If the process for registration can commence as soon as the 30th of July at the latest, it can still be completed before the end of September. And that is something that we must bear in mind. The original argument that there were legal barriers, that has been dismissed as not being factual. Then there was question about whether or not funding is available to do it. It has been clearly stated that funding for the registration of the diaspora have done, the budget appropriation had included the diaspora registration in its deliberations and in the allocations that were made. The technical aspects, how we're going to register, what preparations need to be made in terms of the vote, where Gambians live, and what number of people we need to conduct the registration. All of these things have been done. So we speak now, Ben, there is no barrier at all, clearly nothing that should stop the IEC from coming ahead and registering. Gambian organizations in the diaspora have shown a willingness to be part of the process of enfranchising the diaspora. And they are willing to do their part in ensuring that if the IEC needs further support and assistance in terms of recruitment of these electoral officers, the diaspora will rise up to that challenge. And we will be able to support the IEC in doing that. So right now, what we need...
Thank you, Professor James. I have Professor Fall on standby. And I want to bring him before we run out of minutes so that he can tell us the way forward with MSDG and some of the suggestions you're doing for the IEC. I think he might elaborate on those. Thank you very much, Koto. Professor Fall.
Thanks, Ben. And all I have to say is effectively to re-echo the points made. I agree with what Maimuna said, that these matters, legal, logistic, are so well settled that even having to discuss it is a sort of distraction from our side. Because as far as we know, there is, of course, no legal reason whatsoever why the IDC shouldn't proceed. And I'm pretty sure the parties that went to the Supreme Court would have a view as to what they have to say. On the part of the MSDG, we have formally written, as James have mentioned, to the IEC to ask them to kindly reverse the position they seem to have stated in the press conference a couple of weeks ago, and to return with immediacy, urgency, and intensity on the preparations for diaspora voter registration. And I agree with the sentiment that from the diaspora side, we need to focus on that, because we cannot be, in my view, sort of brought into this phony argument. So it is not, in my view, a valid argument in legality. So we must not be drawn into that dark alley, as it were. If for whatever reason the IEC fails to discharge its duties, that would be their responsibility. We certainly regret the fact that through delays, through distractions, and through what seemed to be attrition, the faith and sort of effectiveness of planning that could have been the order of the day is being undermined. Some of the things that the IEC need to do for the diaspora, it already has the ability to do. James have mentioned that in our estimate, we think that they have to employ about between 170 to 200 diaspora temporary electoral officers. The IEC have lots of experience doing that. They have just finished recruiting effectively over 1,000 such temporary electoral officers in Gambia. They have the training manual, they have the advertisement on specifications, they have all of these documents. All that need to be done is adjust them to reflect the reality in the diaspora. These electoral officers necessarily need to answer to the IEC, although the community would have a great role in helping identify and encouraging people to apply for these positions, but they have to be officers of the IEC, just as the temporary electoral officers in Gambia are officers of the IEC. So perhaps they would have to be paid and put on a contract, even if the payment is nominal. And this mechanism is what is used almost in all of the countries that conduct out-of-country voting. In the case of Senegal, which perhaps is the best example, not only in Africa, but across the world of diaspora voting, their equivalent of IEC is called SENI. That's what they do. They recruit diaspora temporary officers, and in fact, they give them a contract for a 2 to 3 year period so that it's not just during election, but through a cycle. So on our part, MSDG, we are continuing on this technical logistical support. We continue speaking informally and formally with IEC and try to focus on what we think they need to do. So the burden of it is an issue of omission. So if there's going to be any omission, it would be on the side of the authorities, not on the diaspora. Another point I would want to make, because I've heard it mentioned, that is the real important role of community organizations and civil society. This is going to be absolutely crucial, because this is what the diaspora do. They come together for the common goal. So each organization has its own interests and expertise, but what unites us all is a common goal that is for the betterment of Gambian people at home and abroad. You see it at every occasion that they will rally. So some of us visualize diaspora voting as well beyond party politics, well beyond ideology, but almost as a form of enthusiastic civic engagement and what we've been calling a festival of democracy. You can anticipate, you can see a situation in the United States, which is a big place. Maybe there would be 4 or 5 different places where diaspora voting would happen. But you can imagine friends and family driving from small towns where there's no ballot box to go to friends and stay over a weekend so that they would vote. What party they vote for, what person they vote for is totally irrelevant. It would be this festival of democracy and a celebration of citizenship. So we do ask, and we continue to ask the IEC. They might think that the work is very hard, which is true, but that is no reason to shirk it, especially when there is support everywhere. And we have to also acknowledge that other international organizations, UNDP, IFES, IDEA, and many others are already also providing technical support to IEC, are or are available to provide that support as needed. Thanks, Ben.
Thank you very much, Professor Fall. That's well clear. And I just love the point that you raised on it's going to be a festival of democracy. And I'm already visualizing that image in my head. And you are quite true. And would be a start of history. And it's more of unifying us to work on the greater good that we always do. I'll try and get Brother Jagan Gray Johnson. Is Jagan in? I'm expecting Brother Jagan to join us again. I've just spoke to him on the phone. What we want to do is to get him to talk to us, because they're the one behind the Supreme Court case on the way forward, what they plan to do. From here now to facilitate the process through the strategies they have already developed on behalf of representing the diaspora. Jagan.
Hi, Ben. How are you?
Welcome back, brother.
Thanks a lot. Unfortunately, I was waiting to be let in. I was just let in now, so I missed maybe just a little bit of some of the things that you had said. Can you just repeat the question?
Yeah, as I just contacted you on the phone on the side, we just want to know on where you guys would be from now on. What is going to be done? Because we're talking about the strategy, communication on making this possible, and the Gunport with the Honorable Bibi Daba and others, Chanija and others have taken this court case to the Supreme Court, and a verdict was given very clear. And now, what is the next step? Forward. What's the way forward now? James, we're not hearing you. Jagan, we're not hearing you.
Okay, sure. So, as I said, everybody knows about the court case that. Obviously, we had filed with the Supreme Court of the Gambia. They came out with their ruling, which is, obviously in our favor. So that's not news to anybody. I think what is news to a lot of people, Gambians and non-Gambians alike, is the fact that we are now faced with a very serious constitutional issue, which is that we now have the primary institution that is responsible for elections regulations, which is the IEC, potentially in contempt of court. And that hasn't happened in very many countries, even those that are not deemed as democratic. That is the first thing. The second issue is that by virtue of the fact that you've got the elections regulator, which is supposed to be the primary institution at the forefront of promoting popular participation, of promoting the fundamental tenets of, sound democratic practice, of promoting also the issues of, respect for the rule of law, etc., who are now in violation of not only those fundamental principles on the right to vote and be voted for, and the right to participate, which is a fundamental pillar and a cornerstone of, sound democratic practice. They're also in violation of a court order, which means that they have absolutely no respect for the rule of law. So the problem then is that the IEC is actually putting its own credibility on the line, because as a leading institution, especially at the forefront or the cornerstone of democracy and good governance, if you are actually found to be wanting and undermining those principles, it's not just enough that the IEC conducts elections and conducts them freely and fairly and ensures that the playing field is level. But at the end of the day, it must also abide by the same rules that govern each and every single Gambian in that country. And so if it believes now, as it does, and I've been saying this for a while, that the IEC now believes that they are above and beyond reproach, and they are above the Constitution, they are above the people that they serve. And this is precisely because this is I know for us, we've written nothing less than 3 letters to the IEC. They never had the courtesy to reply to us. I know that, other letters have been written by other institutions. They haven't any courtesy to reply to them. Why? Precisely because the IEC thinks that it is the people that serve them and not the other way around. And for all intents and purposes, the IEC is a service provision institution. It provides the services of delivering good elections and free and fair elections, which means that it is accountable to us, the voters, the constituents, and in general, the citizens. Now, having said that, I think for us, the next steps clearly is to ensure that we follow through on this process. This court process that was started, seemingly concluded, but yet to be implemented. So we're going to go to the next phase, which is the implementation of that particular judgment. I don't want to go into details as to what the strategy and the tactics are, but I think the reality is, be rest assured, without a shadow of a doubt, I can promise the listeners, especially the most affected, the disenfranchised diasporans out there that are listening to this program, and those that aren't, but will probably hear this message, but to hear the message loud and clear, and for the IEC to also hear the message loud and clear, that on behalf of the plaintiffs, we are not stopping and we're not going to leave any stone unturned to ensure that this disenfranchisement and the wanton practice of going against the Constitution and basically severing the rights of diasporans, which is a God-given right that they have, the Constitution gives them that right to vote, actually, is overturned and it stops. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Brody James. Jagan, sorry. Thank you for the deliberation. Listeners, we have about less than 20 minutes to go. We'll be going around the speakers for the closing remarks. To remind the people that joined us late, this is the Dialogue on Diaspora Voting 2021, Part 4, and we'll be coming every Saturday for the foreseeable future. And the topic we deliberated on is the strategy on diaspora registration and communication. And it's been organized by the civil society consultation team in the diaspora here, the partners Duga, Right to Know, Gambia House, Norway, and the MSDG project. We have speakers, and I'll go through those speakers, but it's been smallcast on Gainaku Radio, Block TV, YouTube, the Diaspora Radio, Diasporium Radio, Fatu Network, Memos TV, and the social media platforms and Kibaro News. And I will start with Sister Maimuna C for her closing remarks. Sister Mai, are you looking forward for to the Festival of Democracy?
I'm looking forward to the Festival of Democracy then, and it's in 2016 we thought we are done with that festival, that it took place, and now we are moving forward, seeing ourselves back, and then we now have to sit down and visualize another Festival of Democracy is something that we should all take seriously.
Yeah.
On that note, I do my closing remarks. And since we're talking about engagement, we've seen what the MSDG has done. And when you look at the comment section, there are people saying that I will not suggest to increase the engagement. I don't know. I don't think many of the Gambian diaspora are aware of this great group and the amazing work you guys are doing. And I just have to say this again. I come back to, with my closing remarks, to talk about the awareness, our level of awareness and visibility of the things we do, coordinated effort. I think what we should have, one of my suggestions would be to have a key person with the main responsibility of coordinating diaspora voter registration and voting. Under the MSDG, that person should be known to everyone, that the position that the person exists, and this is a stop. To have a concrete person, a concrete place to call. Is it in Norway? This is the concrete person to call. And that person will coordinate with all the other countries in the diaspora.
Yeah.
Instead of fragmenting our efforts and then it's not visible, I don't know. Raising our awareness is very important. And I think we should have a demand to the IAC. This we should have in common as a diaspora.
Yeah.
Clear communication from the IEC, especially the IEC chairman. When he comes, we should make our position that this flip-flopping is not acceptable. It's disrespectful, it's unacceptable, and it's discriminatory towards the diaspora. It should be our priority to develop efficient communication strategies, mechanisms, and structures that when we come out as a diaspora, then this is our common, this is something common, like the letter that we just, the MSDG just sent, an open letter. One of the things we could have done to make it like visible, public, and it's very good that now we are sharing it and people will see it, and it will raise the level of engagement of other people.
Thank you very much.
Efforts, I have a last point. And our efforts, I would just touch on inter-party collaboration. A common strategy. We should develop a common strategy as a diaspora, independent of party affiliations. We have seen how active party members are in the diaspora. They are even more active than the ones in the ground.
Yes.
We should tap on this. Make sure our potentials to serve our interests. We have to coordinate our efforts. And we have learned a lesson. No matter what we have done, all our activism, all our contributions is almost effortless if we are not allowed to participate in elections and vote. So this just shows us that we have to, when it comes to diaspora, we have the potential, we have the expertise, we have the knowledge, and let us just try and tap on those. And if the government is not inviting us, then we invite ourselves and strategize and see how we would make our interests and our voices heard. And on that, I'm looking forward to the Festival of Democracy and hope that our efforts are not wasted.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Sister Mai. Sister Jenaba. Sister J. Sister Jenaba having connectivity problems in the Gambia. I will come back to her. Dr. Sabali, your closing remarks, please. Dr. Sabali? Okay, Dr. Sabali just not that. Joey Gazwell, your closing remarks, please.
Oh, thank you very much once again to be a speaker on this forum. Once again, we've made our case very clear for everybody to hear what the position is. The issue about diaspora and vote is something that we cannot compromise with. It's our legitimate right. We've got a judgment that has made provision for us to be registered, and we should pursue it to the last dot. I'm really thrilled with the activities of the MSDG and those who took the court case to the Supreme Court for the efforts they've made. It's now time for those who are listening to us to engage with us or MSDG UK, enhance them with how they can support the project, whereby when IEC decides to change its mind, which it should, we will have a much more evidence to show that it was a failed attempt of trying to deny Gambians in the diaspora the right to vote. As I said, all is not lost. We've got a few months ahead. We just need to continue. If Uncle Abu Momanjai says to us that the time is too short, I would say no, we can still do it. If they did it in 1996 when they were under pressure from foreign donors, then I see no reason why they can't do it now when they're not under any pressure, but just to comply with the laws. On that note, I'm happy that I was made a guest speaker and hope to hear from you later. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you very much, brother. Let me try Dr. Sabali again. Dr. Sabali. Okay. Okay, Dr. Sabali might not be on. Let me try Sister Jenaba. Okay, then we'll move on to Koto James Bahum.
Thank you, Ben, and thank you for
Prophet James. I just want you to add on note whether you note the recommendations that mainly came from the speakers, but again from a contribution from Brother Bakaiba, and especially from Sister Mai on the advocacy for MSGD or a representative of our community representative select nomination or something of that sort.
Yes, Ben. The diaspora continues to advocate for their rights to be registered and to vote, and that will continue. Yeah. We will continue to engage positively with the IEC, that is the MSDG. We have a good working relationship, which we hope will continue, and that our demands for registration and the right to vote will be realized in time for the 2021 presidential election in December. The ball is now squarely in their court, the court of the IEC. And it is for them now to follow through with the promises that they made earlier that the diaspora will vote. And it is not impossible. It is, in fact, right now where we stand, all the work has been done. It is for them now to find the political will to deliver on those promises that they made. The diaspora will continue to advocate. The community, the local Gambian communities in the diaspora are active, have always been active. You go to Sweden, you have August. You come to the UK, you have in almost every major city in the UK, you have a Gambian community organization. The same applies to America and all around the world where there are Gambians. And these organizations are the bedrock, if you like, of the Gambian communities, mobilizing when they need to, celebrating where they need to, and coming together both in happiness and in happy times and in sadness and bereavement. So we already have the wherewithal in the diaspora. These community groups have been active throughout the campaign against the dictatorship. And our contribution, has been well noted, even by the president and the IEC, and Gambians in their numerous numbers, their huge numbers, have actually commended the diaspora for the part that they played when the people on the ground were under the yoke of dictatorship and could not speak for themselves. It was the diaspora that spoke out and spoke out very loud. So that activism and that determination to remain free, either in good or bad times, is still there. And like Mr. Goswell said, we are able to go back and start advocating for our fundamental rights as Gambians, regardless of where we live. And that has been made clear in law and policy. So I think, we are now waiting for the IEC to give us the green light. And if they require further support, technical and logistical, MSDG is willing and able to provide that support. And we await them to reply to the letter of the 31st of May, which was sent in response to the chairman's statement regarding, the fact, what he said, that we need to be in a constituency. We are already from constituencies of origin, as we want to call them, and therefore can be registered in those constituencies as out-of-country voters. So right now, the ball is in the court of the IEC, and we wait for their response urgently and earnestly. Thank you.
Suleiman? Suleiman, can we hear you? Can you hear us? Okay, I believe we've lost Suleiman. To all our listeners and our panelists, I say thank you. On behalf of the organizers, we are grateful for your time, effort in trying to ensure that the realization of the diaspora vote in December 2021 is a foregone conclusion. I quote from the judgment by the Supreme Court, 27th January 2021. I quote, in lieu of an order as prayed for by the plaintiffs, this court finds and declares that pursuant to Section 39 of the Constitution, every Gambian, including those residing outside the jurisdiction, are entitled to register for and vote in elections to offices of President, members of the National Assembly, for local government offices and traditional rulers, as well as a referenda. This was signed by the Chief Justice, Honorable Hassan B. Jallo, signed by Honorable Justice R.C. Sok, signed by Honorable Justice M.M.C., and signed by Justice A. Ba. So we now ask the question, who is responsible to ensure the IEC adheres to the decisions of the Supreme Court and to put an end to the continued disenfranchisement of Gambian diaspora? The chairman of the IEC, in his address to Gambian diaspora, threw the following words at us. He talked about inclusiveness in January. He also talked about transparency. He further said, and I quote, diaspora voting will start in 2021. On that promise, end quote, on that promise, I stand on the quotation from Professor Fall, calling for a festival of democracy and a celebration of citizenship. Continuing to disenfranchise the diaspora risks rendering the December 2021 elections illegal due to the deliberate violation of the Constitution. Discrimination of any Gambian is tantamount to discrimination of all Gambians. The legitimacy of our elections in December 2021 is at stake. As we had today, we refute the statements by the IEC chairman. If they have done all, please show us. We need to know the actors blocking the realization of our constitutional right. The logistical framework has been provided to the IEC. So why is the IEC creating a constitutional crisis? Why is the President of the Republic of the Gambia, President Adama Barrow, allowing such a blatant abuse of the rights of Gambians under his watch? We continue to ask these questions, and we continue to support our fellow Gambians' right to know in their pursuit of democracy in the courts. It is a shame that to realize our rights, we have to resort to the courts. If that's the political will, that's the way they want to play the game, that's the way the actors, the citizens of the Gambia, will play the game. See you next Saturday, and thank you for joining us.
Recording stopped.